All right, welcome back to another episode of Investmentor Podcast. Today I have the privilege of being able to understand more about Tony's portfolio. Tony, who's our lead mentor here at Investmentor. Tony, can you start off by telling us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, Danny, good to be doing this with you. So I think today's the how this came about is I often get you asking me questions about, when you speak to new members and some of the questions, which is really a reflection of someone coming from an angle where they're not experienced in the whole property investment journey.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the kind of insights and perspective that me and my mentor team are there to provide.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm really looking forward to this podcast and sharing, my personal journey.
Yeah.
And also, what are the most common misconceptions that newer members always think about?
Yeah.
Or ask us about. So Danny, when you're on, speaking to new members on the phone, especially the ones who haven't joined the membership just yet, what are the typical questions that you always get?
Yeah, so you notice, obviously I'll speak to you usually after I speak to somebody, and I sort of hit like a roadblock, and I don't really know how to answer them. But that's when your expertise comes in. But it's usually the same questions over and over, but just in sort of different sort of situations. But it's according to the same sort of goal, though. The one of the main questions I wanted to really understand your thoughts about, like how does anybody in Australia get to like 5, 7, or 8 properties? Like, how did you build your portfolio to what it is now, or what is your sort of current portfolio? Share with us your journey.
Yeah, good question. I think this is an area where, coming back to the webinar that people initially watch, this is definitely not a get-rich-quick scheme. Mm-hmm. And what that really means is it does take time. People never ask me, how long did it take you to get to 5, 6 properties? And personally, it took me 8 years to get to my 5th property. That's when it settled. So it's not like it happened overnight. And I think that's the journey that most people may not understand, because all they hear about, this guy has 20 properties, this guy has 10 properties, this guy has 5 properties. They straight away think, wow, these guys must have done it very quickly.
Yeah.
And they want that same formula or recipe. And that's why I guess they join this program like this, where they think they may be able to do it very quickly. So it did take time. It didn't come overnight. It's not like I started it last year.
Yeah.
I started back in 2009.
Right.
And fast forward to this year, we're in 2022 now. And a lot of things have happened during that time. Yeah. So I think that's the thing we can share a bit more. So aside from how, that's a really good question from members. Yeah. What else do they? So
another common misconception is that a lot of people are afraid of lending. They're afraid of lending. One is to obtain and get the mortgage, and the other thing is because family circumstances change, their lifestyle change. They're also worried about them actually being maxed out. So how do you actually sort of get around that? Because a lot of people that I speak to, they're like, I've got 2 properties, my wage is like this, my family's like this, and I've been to the mortgage broker, I've been to the banks already, and they already said I'm maxed out after 2 properties. So how did you and how did somebody else achieve that many properties over that amount of time? I think a lot of people don't really understand what other options are there, or if there is any. I'm not even too sure. What other possibilities are there if they do potentially get maxed out? Like what next?
Yeah, that's a really common topic that me as a mentor always share with my members as well. I think there's a few areas there. The first area is coming back to the market fundamentals.
Yeah.
So we live in a country called Australia, and in the country of Australia, there are certain rules or regulations we have to follow. And in the world of lending or buying properties in Australia, the rules are that you have to be qualified in the eyes of the bank in order to take out a loan. So our role is to working actively with our brokers to explain to them what those rules are and how do you set yourself up to be in the best position so that in the eyes of the banks, then you are deemed to be, qualified. And when we explain things to members, often they may feel disappointed or let down in a sense that they thought they can do something, but they can't because of these regulations or policies in place that makes this whole property investing thing harder to achieve.
Yeah.
But you know what, Danny, if you ask me, that's a positive thing because a lot of people worry about, is the market ever going to crash, for example. But to me, because of these regulations, because of these policies that the banks and the lending institutions have set in place, that actually protects the market. Because you have to tick certain boxes before you qualify for loans.
Right.
And to me, that's a good thing.
Okay.
And that's why I'm very confident that, personally, I don't think we'll ever get into like a USA situation. If you can't remember when the whole bubble thing burst and the whole market crashed because we go by really different policies. And that makes our market a lot more stable.
Yeah, so quite robust.
Robust, tough, conservative, whatever you want to call it, but it protects our investors in a sense, or general just property owners. So that's number one. Number two is, I think it comes back to the attitude and the mindset. Mm-hmm. It's like me telling you, oh, Danny, I want to become a professional soccer player.
Yeah.
You look at me. I am 33.
Yep.
I'm not fit.
Yeah. And we do play soccer, by the way.
So
we do play every Thursday if you guys want to come around in Strathfield.
Where you guys play together?
Yeah. So we actually do play on Thursday just for social.
Just for social, that's
so
right.
they call him 2-foot Tony because he could slog the ball with 2 feet.
Which is not true. And social is a very key word because I know myself that I'm no longer, the fittest I was being. I think my peak fitness is probably 18, 20.
Yeah.
That was my peak. And if you ask me to become a professional, I can tell you now it's very difficult because I know what type of fitness I need. It's like what kind of diet I need to follow. Mm-hmm. And it pretty much means I need to stop work in order to pursue that career. So I guess what we're here to do is if people want to tell us, they want to invest in property, we help them understand what it takes, right? We set the boundaries for them. These are the guidelines you have to follow if you ever want to become, a long-term successful investor. I'll give you another analogy. I think Investmentor is like a gym.
Okay.
Let's use the gym analogy.
Okay, the gym.
Just because you buy a gym membership does not mean you'll get fit. Let's be honest, right?
Yeah.
You can choose to go,
or
you can choose not to go. And even if you choose to go, it doesn't mean you use the equipment correctly. That's why you pay for a PT, who help you to use the equipment properly.
Right.
And may even give you a diet plan or give you an exercise plan.
Yeah.
So just because you sign up to a gym does not guarantee results. So I see our membership as the gym and our mentors as the PT in this sense.
Right.
Because we are here to encourage our members. We're here to push them. We are here to remind them the things that they must follow in order to become successful. And that's why this is a long-term partnership. Yeah. Because you go to gym doesn't mean you can put on muscle straight away. It may take 3-4 months to, for the results to finally show up, right? And another thing is there are many gyms around in Australia. There's Fitness First, there's Plus Fitness, there's
Crunch,
heaps of them.
Yeah.
And Investmentor is just like another, one of many gyms. because I think a lot of members like to compare us,
Yeah.
right? So a lot of members ask us, how do we compare?
Yeah.
And I think it always comes back to results. That's why we're very proud of what we've done so far, because our valuations results, the property recommendations that we've given to our members are pretty much top quality.
Right.
And that's something we're very proud of, because, our gym has been able to produce, those kind of results.
Okay. So the result speaks for itself. Is what
The
you're
results speak for themselves. That's
Yeah.
right. And then probably to finish off, I think it really comes back to the individual.
saying. Okay.
Like if they want to do something and we outline the requirements, and it's up to them to digest that information and really think for themselves whether they want to pursue long term.
Right.
Especially for people who may have to do a few things to get them in a ready state to start investing.
Okay.
Because not everyone is ready. And that's why often we have members that have been working with us for maybe 6 to 12 months, and then they start with us. Like, I can give you a few examples, right?
Okay.
Where people need to do certain things, such as saving to a certain deposit, or they need to sort out a few personal issues, like maybe clearing out some personal debt, or they need to go through other personal stuff to get themselves ready in order to start their journey.
So it's like a sort of like a game of finance, would you say?
That's probably the most critical.
Yeah, it
definitely
really is just sort of like a game of finance where like you're trying to hit this certain objective, but you have to meet the criteria in terms of unlocking certain certain factors, or maybe closing off certain areas to gain that borrowing capacity, all that serviceability to actually do something. Because a lot of people they want to they get motivated, and they see what's going on the market, and they have what I like to call FOMO, so the fear of missing out.
Yeah.
Right? The fear of missing out, right? And then, but when it comes to it, they hit all these roadblocks, and they're like, well, how do I get past that? And that's where obviously the finance breakdown and the finance plan actually comes into action during your strategy sessions.
That's right.
Is that right?
And one thing I'll add to that, Danny, you made a very good point. It is difficult, and that's why I think it can be very rewarding to become a successful investor. Because when you look at the statistics, when you look at the numbers, the reality is a very small percentage of our population are property investors.
Okay.
So to become a property investor, you're already a minority, right? So I see it as it's not a right. Like, just because you want to do something doesn't mean you can just do it.
Yeah.
You have to earn it. Yeah. It's a privilege to be able to become a property investor.
Right. You got to work for it.
Work for it. Because even if you look at your personal situation, there are many reasons why you haven't been able to get started.
Yeah.
And they're all justified, right? But I think the most important thing in your situation is you are still working towards being able to get started. And I think that's the part that most people may not be able to sustain. They have the idea, they come into our program and they understand the challenges.
Yeah.
And they can do one or two things from there. Okay. They can either give up because things too hard, or it's going to take too long.
Yeah.
Or they really keep motivated, keep committed.
Stay disciplined. Disciplined, yeah.
Like, imagine we tell them, hey, you have to save, 50 grand, and it'll take them 2 years to do it. Most people may not take up that challenge and say, oh, you know what, 2 years too long.
Yeah.
I'll rather do something else.
Right.
But this is why I think this role is so rewarding, because you do come across people who are super committed, and they are, again, in the minority. And whatever rewards come their way, they've earned it. So it's the best part of what we do.
Okay. Well, okay, let's move on here. So there's another question that's on sort of everyone's mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is very vague, and I don't know what the best answer to this, but is it ever a good time to buy? Can you actually time the market? Like, is this the right time to buy, or is tomorrow the right time to buy? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, very common question. And, you know, if I could tell the future,
Yeah.
then I wouldn't be working. Honestly, you know,
Right.
if I can tell the future, I'll help all you guys to not work.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what the numbers are,
Yeah.
you know, to buy a lotto, right?
Okay.
So I think the reality is, most investors who have been there, done that,
Yep.
they'll tell you just buy whenever you can,
Right.
whenever you're financially ready,
Yeah.
whenever you're mentally ready. Because if you want to take into account all the what ifs
Mm-hmm.
or all the things that may or may not happen, then the most likely outcome is you just won't do anything.
Mm.
Because it's almost like, when is the best time to get married? When's the best time to have a baby?
Yeah. Right.
You know, I'm going through that myself. Like, how do you ever plan for that?
Yeah.
You know, like, you just want, if you are committed into doing something, you just do it. Because when you're trying to plan for too many things and too many unknowns,
Mm-hmm.
you just end up procrastinating.
Mm.
And you always put all the other things in front of that and end up not doing it,
Mm.
which to me just means it's not that important to you,
Mm.
right? So, but one thing I will say is, to members who are ready, like especially financially, and just needs a bit of help to understand where they're at, where the market is at, for example.
Yeah.
And that's what we're here for. We help them to, I guess, prepare their mental state,
Okay.
to help them, you know, acquire that confidence,
Yep.
acquire that insight, which they may not be able to access before. And once those two things are ready, which is financial and then mental readiness, then there's no excuses.
Okay. So let's just say someone's mentally ready. They absolutely love the idea, right? They love the strategy. They're financially ready, right? And they're good to go. Now, how do you determine what to buy? You know, there's like, 38,000 suburbs in Australia,
Yeah.
townhouse, house and land, co-living, apartments. Like, where do you even sort of formulate your strategy from those type? So how do you know, or how would you advise them on what to buy?
I think this is one area that I'm very confident about.
Okay.
Again, based on the results that our gym has produced, right? A lot of fit people out there
Yeah.
that has come through our gym,
Okay.
and they're fit in the sense that they've done really well.
They're financially fit.
Correct.
Yeah.
From their products.
Yeah.
So that question really comes down to, number one, what can that member afford? That's
Right,
why
okay.
affordability is very important.
Mhm.
You know, when you look at our recommendations, they tend to be anywhere between 500 to 750,000 as a range. And we target that range predominantly because we know, based on our member base, you know, we see a lot of, you know, fact finds and so forth. We know that's the majority of our members.
Hmm.
Even if people can afford more for an investment, they probably prefer less to do so.
Yeah.
They want to save that really big purchase maybe for their family home,
Right.
in the future, which is fine.
Hmm.
So we target that space because, to be honest, if budget wasn't an issue, you know, we'll probably go to the best suburbs, like eastern suburbs,
Yeah.
northern beaches,
Yeah.
inner west.
Right.
When we talk about Sydney, because we know those are the best performing suburbs. When we talk about properties doubling every 10 years, those areas triple
Yeah.
every 10 years.
Yeah.
But the question is, if our members don't have the financial means to get into those areas, what's the point? What's the
Yeah.
point of us doing the research? What's the point of us doing the due diligence?
Hmm.
Because even if we take on those projects and we tick them off as, yep, they've been approved by by our research team, our members can't take advantage.
Hmm.
That's why we shift our focus towards the ones that our members can access realistically, which is somewhere between 500 and 750,
Okay.
like majority, right? So that's number one. That's the first criteria that we're trying to tick. Now, the second criteria is about, you know, what John's team does on a daily basis. You know, what are the fundamentals? They have a massive checklist. You know, we had a training last Friday about how John's team conduct their research
Yeah.
and why some projects passes and some projects don't, which is the majority. So, it can get very technical, but ultimately the number one thing we're trying to achieve here is value for our members. As simple as that, value.
Okay. So I guess it's not about finding the best property, right? It's about finding the right property for the right person at the right time. Would you say so? And finding the value in those actual properties, not actually trying to get the actual best one that's going to be 1.5, 1.8 or 1.1 million just for the purchase, but really finding the value so that it's more affordable for our members.
100%. So value and affordability.
Value,
because like I said, if budget was an issue, we'll go out to all the best blue chip suburbs.
Yeah.
And their price tag is $2 million plus.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. All right, so the next thing I wanted to get, so another example, one of my members, right, that I've spoken to, now they're in the market.
Yep.
Yeah, they're in the market,
Mm-hmm.
right? They are convinced that they need to get a second one. So the mindset's there, the mentality's there. They've got 2 small children, right? So the family, they've had kids, right? They've got the savings, right? They've got the savings. Yeah, they've got at least 10%. Their equity now, they've pumped at least, the growth is about $500,000 in equity.
Yep.
And I think I've spoken to you briefly about this. They've made $500,000 in the equity, but now it's worth, say, 1.2, 1.3, and they bought it for 700,000 or 800,000.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
But now, everything ticks off except for the part that they can't draw it. They can't touch it, right? They can't touch it. They got the deposit, but they just can't touch it. What do you do in those sort of situations like that? Because it's a single income earner, right? Only the husband's working, right? And it's a stay-home mum, and I find it's very common. Yeah, I find it's very common whereby they want to get into their first or second investment property, but they've got a young family, but they've got the capital, but they can't draw the equity because, of their perhaps their borrowing capacity. What do you do in situations like those? Do they sell their property? Do they wait, buy, sort of just hold on it? Does the wife get back into work? What do you sort of suggest in those scenarios?
I think the lowest hanging fruit is understanding whether it's realistic for the partner to get some sort of income, because you'll be surprised how big 20,000-30,000 makes to the whole equation.
Right.
Rather than being zero income, and in the eyes of the bank, be seen as a liability.
Yeah.
Compared to, doing casual or part-time work earning 20,000-30,000. I think that's number one, and that's one area that we always explore, with our members, because we'll run it past brokers to get their feedback and see, okay, what variables can be reviewed in order for them to achieve some sort of serviceability. Which is their borrowing capacity.
Okay.
So, again, we are here to convey what are the guidelines, what are the policies.
Yeah.
We don't make the rules. We love to, but we don't.
Yeah. Right.
How the bank sees, people's situation. That's why sometimes the timing may not be there. If I go back to your member, maybe the wife realistically cannot go back to work because they've got 2 young kids, and that's okay, because we're not here to say just because you've got the deposit, you can start. It still relies on some other variables, and that's why, again, just because you sign up to a gym membership doesn't mean you can achieve your goals.
Right.
You have to do the program. You have to hang in there, so to speak, and tough it out. And it does take time, going back to members who stay with our membership for over 12 months. And they do come back if they're really committed to say, hey, Tony, I'm ready now. You told me this and now I've done it. So what can I do? There are definitely members out there that are like that. So, we'll sit down with those members, like your example, and convey whatever possibilities there may be.
Yeah.
And see if we can make something work.
Right. Okay.
That's the best we can do.
Yeah. At least give it our best shot, right?
Outline to them what they need to do.
Yeah.
But one thing we won't do is put them in a position where they could risk,
Right.
their deposit or
Put them under pressure,
put
financial
on
pressure.
financial pressure.
Yeah. Mortgage stress.
Because to us, that's not the kind of company we are.
Yeah.
You know,
Okay.
as much as we like to help, but there are certain things we won't cross the line for.
Okay.
You know.
Okay. That's very
Yeah.
good. So that's interesting. So that's obviously somebody that has kind of reached like a roadblock. Now with the people that you've dealt with, I want to hear some of our success stories.
Yeah.
You know, some of the people that we actually have, fulfilled their results. You know, and what makes it, what does good sort of look like for you, in terms of the results, like when they become a member at this gym, right? What's optimal?
I think the optimal state that people can get into is, number one, it starts with the mental,
Okay.
the mindset. Number one is they understand where we're coming from, because what we represent here is a perspective.
Yeah.
But it's a collective perspective that we all represent. We know the values, we know the characteristics of a successful investor, and we can convey that to our members, and hopefully over time, as our partnership grows, they can really align to our values, because they see, okay, well, these guys have followed these guidelines, these policies, and they have managed to get to where they are today. And for us mentors who see people's mindset and perspectives change after working with them, I think that's probably the best thing that we see. Because that's even before they even buy a property.
Yeah.
Because people's mindsets and beliefs and perspective has to change before they agree, okay, Tony, I actually like what you're suggesting. Let's do it. So it has to make sense in their mind first.
Yeah. So they have to be self-convicted with themselves, right? So they have to be convicted with themselves that this is the absolute, best way to do it in their own belief system, for them
Correct.
to have the drive to actually take action.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Like, believe this is what we're saying makes sense for them.
Yeah.
So that's number one. And secondly, I think follow through and do it. And because taking action is certainly another difficult part.
Okay.
Because everything can sound good in theory,
Yeah.
but when you put yourself in that position where you're about to sign your papers, sign your contract, and then pay that deposit, that's another obstacle that people may face. They think,
Right.
it's buyer's remorse, right?
Yeah.
They think, am I really making the right decision? Maybe I should run it past my partner. Well, not my partner. Most people, their partner should be on board.
Yeah.
But my family, my parents, my friend, my colleague, let's get all the agreements before I do something. That's common too.
Yeah.
We've had a few instances where people don't go through because of an outsider's perspective.
Right. So they get cold feet.
Cold feet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or they get buyer's remorse.
Okay.
And they don't follow through.
Right.
And for the majority of our members who go through, and take action, I think obviously seeing the actual result, like financially, like for whatever they've purchased, and now how much their property has grown. When we talk about optimal, I think that's what our company works so hard for.
Okay.
Our research team, our acquisition team, because whatever we recommend, whatever is available for our members, we have absolute belief that they will deliver. Otherwise, we wouldn't recommend in the first place.
Yeah.
So when all those parts come together, and that's when everything is justified. About what we do, and finally, seeing referrals come through. I think that's
Word
another
of mouth, of course, right?
sign of success for us.
Yeah.
Because if people feel so happy about a service, they just can't help but recommend their friends, family, colleague to Investmentor. That's another thing that we're seeing quite regularly now. So that makes us really happy as well.
Okay, that's good. All right, so on the topic, you mentioned, some people facing these challenges and these obstacles during the sort of buying process. like I'm sure you would have faced some sort of challenges and obstacles in your journey as well, right?
Yeah, of course. Everyone, all our directors, all the mentors, we are all investors, so we know these obstacles and what they are.
So can you share with us, like, what were some of the challenges and obstacles that you faced during your journey? And how did you overcome it?
Yeah, look, let's talk about lending, right?
Yeah, okay.
That's obviously one of the most common ones.
Yeah, okay.
So let's rewind back to 2009. When I first started that job, that was my first ever job in Australia, in Sydney. I studied accounting, for those who don't know.
Okay.
So my first job was entry-level accountant with Coca-Cola, and my base at the time was 50,000, And one thing I will say is the variables and the factors back in that time was slightly different to today's environment. So I think that's one thing we always have to keep in mind. The variables, the factors may change. We just have to adapt, adapt to the situation and optimize whatever we can do at that time.
Right. Be resourceful.
Be resourceful, always looking for answers rather than knowing what the obstacle is and then just stop.
Yeah.
I think that's very different. So when I first started, 50,000 entry-level position, and that's how I got in, with family support.
Okay. And did you buy first to live in, or did you buy
investment?
Okay,
Yeah. So my family and I were renting for a very long time.
Okay.
I think we rented for 16 years.
Okay.
When we first arrived in Australia. So we were the typical rent investors. Yeah. So, and how I managed to grow my portfolio and how to overcome that lending challenge is, if you look at the 8 years that I spent in building my property portfolio, the difference in salaries between when I first started till the end of the 8 years, on average, every year, I managed a 10 grand increase in my salary.
Okay.
So by the time I finished working, or at the end of that 8 years, my salary has grown to 150. And as an accountant, for some people, it may be difficult for them to do, because it's not like it's a given that you go from 50 to 150.
Yeah.
Because there's many different roles in the accounting industry.
Yeah.
There's the lower paying jobs or the high paying jobs, depending on what you want. So for me, it was all about getting the pay rise, getting the promotion, because I knew I wanted to become, a property investor.
Yeah.
Because I knew every time I get a pay rise, then it will help me with my next property. So when it comes to navigating the whole lending challenge that most of our members may go through, I think it comes back to the individual. Like, what can you do in your industry to pay more or be more valuable to your employer? And that's why, when I speak to fellow accountants, I always ask them, when was your last change in your role? Because how I managed to get to my end goal or my end position is I change role on average every 12 to 18 months.
Right.
That's my standard. And what I found in the corporate world is if you jump internally, the pay rise is much lower than if you go external. So what I mean by it's changing companies.
Changing companies.
That's right. If you jump between roles between Coke or Woolworths, for example, because Woolworths is where my second company was at, the increases were lower. But the jump that I had from Coke to Woolworths, that leap was huge.
Right. So internally, like working up the ladder is not as effective.
It's much slower than you making external moves. And that's the kind of, again, coming back to the whole, we live in Australia.
Yeah.
These are the rules that have been set in Australia.
Yeah.
You just have to know what the rules are and play accordingly.
Okay.
And that's my experience with the corporate world in Australia. You can be doing the same role, but by the fact that you change to another company, for some reason, they're happy to pay you more. but you're doing exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
But guess what? This is Australia.
Yeah.
So we have to play and play things to our advantage.
According to the guidelines, yeah?
Correct.
Yeah.
So I challenge, anyone out there who may think their career is stuck or can't get to the next level. Ask yourself the question, what have you tried or done that helps you to get to the next level? For me, in the accounting world, it's about changing roles, getting exposure to more areas, and also having so I was a management accountant.
Yeah.
So there's two fields in accounting. There's financial and management. Financial is when you're like getting to nitty gritty, like debits and credits, like
Right.
the really nitty gritty stuff.
Yeah.
Whereas management is the more, I guess you can call it the sexy side.
Okay.
Like you do reporting, you speak to management to talk about how to make business decisions.
Right.
For me, that's the field that is more lucrative.
Okay.
That's why I just stay in that field. Number one, I was never interested in financial accounting. And secondly, I felt management is probably the path that I wanted
Yeah.
in order to advance my own, personal goals.
More aligned with your forte.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. So yeah, I think it's about exploring and talking to people who have reached those kind of positions,
Okay.
and just getting their advice on how have you managed to get to that level, how have you managed to get to that position, rather than just thinking, oh, I can't change my salary so quick. It doesn't work like that, Yeah.
All right. Okay. Thanks for that, Tony. So I want to go back to what you mentioned before, some of the results. Okay, let's talk about results. You mentioned that members, they're actually seeing the results when they buy. Okay, seeing the results, 6-12 months?
Yeah.
Would you say so?
Yeah.
So then a lot of my members, a lot of new members, the question, how do you actually see the results if it's not built yet? Like if it's off the plan, how do you determine what the real results are?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
How does that work? How do you explain to the members? How do you explain to our members what the numbers are?
Yeah. Generally speaking, we base our results on what's happening in the resale market.
Right. In the
So-
vicinity, so in the
Yeah.
Okay.
So if the recommended suburb that our members have purchased,
Yeah.
whatever price they've bought in, we'll then monitor the market and see, in the future, in like 6 months' time, 12 months' time, and we actually do that ourselves. What people are paying for second-hand properties, and how does that price compare to whatever our members have secured?
Yeah.
That's how we establish the value.
Mm-hmm.
Because we trying to come from an angle where how the valuers would think about property valuation.
Right.
And this is one area that I always spend a lot of time in explaining to my members. We are trying to think like valuers. Because in the future, that's how valuers will establish the value of whatever
Of your property, right?
our members have
Okay.
purchased.
Makes sense.
So if we think like valuers and if we follow, again, their guidelines, then the chances are we'll
Get a high value property.
get ahead. And
Makes sense.
that's right.
Okay.
So that's how we monitor. So even though the property is not built,
Mm-hmm.
but say hypothetically, if our members are purchasing at 500,
Mm-hmm.
but the whole market is buying a very similar property, which is existing for 550, then there's a pretty good chance that by the time the brand new one is built, people are willing to pay 550, if not a lot more, because mind you, this is brand new,
Yeah.
not secondhand.
Yeah. Right.
And the chances are the valuation result will support that,
Right.
because that's how the valuers think.
Okay. That makes sense now. Okay.
Yeah.
So then, so with your situation now, look, you're 33.
Yep.
33, right? You got 5, 6 properties. You got a portfolio. You just got married.
Yep.
Right. What's next for you, Tony? Like where to from here?
I think
Where's your sort of what do you want to see fulfilled?
I think it's about the ongoing career development. I think that's because let's be honest, right? We spend a lot of time at work,
Yeah.
and as much as the whole idea of retiring early, that may sound good in theory, but
Yeah.
realistically, are you really going to stop working even when you can?
Yeah.
Because if you look at the most successful businessmen out there, like Elon Musk, Jeff
Yeah.
Bezos,
Yeah,
all those people, do they stop working?
Yeah, right.
But they have so much money, it's not funny.
Mm.
But why do they keep working? So I think it's about personal satisfaction, and just becoming more and better than what you are right now.
Mm.
So for me, it's very similar. I know it sounds cliche, but what am I going to do at home all day?
Yeah.
If I'm not working, or if I'm not thinking of ways to become better.
Yeah.
So I think this whole world is very fair.
Mm.
One area of success typically is linked with another.
Mm.
I don't often see people with a big portfolio of properties, but outside of that, they haven't been too successful. For
Right.
example, from a career point of view,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Okay.
So it's not like they can get to one success without being successful in other areas.
Right.
It doesn't work like that.
Yeah. Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, because it's not just the finance side, but it's all about the mental side too.
Yeah.
Like, so that's why I
Psychology,
think
yeah.
everything is correlated in a sense.
Okay.
So yeah, that's I think that's what I'm trying to work towards. Like,
Okay.
how do I get better in every single aspect of my life?
Okay.
Relationship, marriage, business,
Yeah.
personal. How do you have better relationships with people around you? So it's both tangible and intangible.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So then, all right. Then, I guess last question.
Yep.
What would be your true definition
Hmm.
of success then?
I think the true definition is, well, personally, right,
Yeah.
is being able to do things whenever you want,
Mm-hmm.
and there's no barriers.
Right.
Like, if you want to do something, just do it.
Okay. So having that freedom.
Freedom.
Right?
Yeah.
Having options.
Many options. I think in life, options are the most valuable thing.
Okay.
Not being stuck to just one thing.
Yeah.
Because you simply either don't have the time to do it,
Yeah.
or you don't have the financial means to do it. So it's about having as many options for you to choose. Yeah. I'll use another analogy. So imagine every situation in life is like a buffet.
Yeah. Okay.
You choose what you want.
Yeah.
That would be a very good situation to be in. But most of us can order only what we want in restaurants,
Right,
based on
yeah.
our budget, right?
It's a very good analogy.
So imagine everything you do is a buffet.
Yeah.
You choose what car you drive, you choose what restaurants you go to, you
Where you
choose
wanna
what
go.
home you live in,
Okay.
you choose what job you want to do.
Hmm.
But the fact that we have limitations is the reason why we work hard,
Yeah.
is to have more options in life.
Oh wow.
For me, the priorities change, and that's where everyone's different. What I think is important may not be important to you, for example. So it's a success is an evolving. I think it's an evolving topic.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So then, all right. So then, if for the obviously for the people that hasn't joined, or for the people that still hasn't invested, what's the one sort of piece of advice that you want to give to our audience then, if they want to get into the property market?
Well, I think one thing that I would encourage is definitely understand what has held you back in the past.
Yeah.
Number one. Because it's about asking yourself whether you want that to continue, or are you seriously committed to making a change?
Yeah.
Because I guess the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, but expect a different result.
Yeah.
Right?
Albert Einstein. Huh?
So just because this gym is available doesn't mean everyone can succeed just because you come in, right? Because we do have members that we can't work things out with.
Yeah, there's not much that we can do for them,
Right.
Okay.
But one thing I will say is at least understand, number one, what's held you back in the past.
Yep.
Is it to do with you, or is it to do with external factors that you just may not understand? Because the chances are, if it is to do with something external, like outside of you, then we can probably help. But
Yep.
if it's to do with your own
Belief system.
mindset and beliefs,
Yeah.
then, I mean, we can give you our perspective,
Yeah.
and hopefully we can help you to understand our perspective. And it's up to you whether, you take it on or not.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think starting from that angle may be helpful to a lot of your, people that you speak to on the
Okay.
phone.
All right. So understanding why they haven't started in the first place, what's actually held them back, huh?
Yeah, because let me ask you this: how old are the people that you typically talk to on the phone?
Oh, like young they usually typically have young families, right? The most common people, they're like early 40s.
Early 40s.
Early 40s, right?
Right.
They have one or two kids under 16 that are already in primary school, and now they're just trying to sort of get ahead in it, because now they're worrying about, or they're thinking about what's going to happen in the next 10 or 20 years, right?
Yeah.
And then nobody wants to keep working until they're like, say 70 years old. That's the sort of perception that they get, and so they're trying now. Something clicked, and now they want to do it.
Yeah.
Now they want to do it. I have to try to explain to them those guidelines, right? And how we can sort of present them with the facts. But those are the typical. So like early 40s, mid 40s, young family.
Yeah.
One owner's occupied, or one is occupied, and one investment property trying to get to the second or third. Those are that's the core of it.
It's interesting you raise that, because I've never met a young person or someone in their 30s who regretted buying a property 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
They've always I guess they're always pretty grateful that they did.
Yeah.
And they're now thinking, what else can they do? Like, they want to do more. Because going back to your typical example, I personally just feel that for whatever reason, they weren't able to. Or there were other priorities when they were younger, which prevented them from making a start early. That's why I really enjoy, personally working with people in their early 20s, mid 20s, even late 20s, even early 30s.
Yeah.
Because that's, for me, when they're single, not much going on with their relationships and kids, that's probably the best time for people to start.
Right.
Because they have less financial commitments. But doesn't mean for people who are, with families, with dependents, with kids, can't make a start. But like you've said, it comes with, I guess, different set of variables and things that they may have to overcome. Limitations.
Yeah.
Right. But, we're here to help, everyone, and at least give them the facts and outline the things. And I'm very hopeful that, based on our expertise and services, we should be able to at least give some recommendations, which would help them in, if not now, but at least in the future.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Awesome.
All right, Tony. Thanks for that. I'm sure I got some valuable insights. I'm sure the audience have, again, a bit of knowledge from your experience, your background as well, being able to sit here and pick your brain like that. I know I do it, probably like once a week at least, but
Yeah.
I
All
thought
good.
some of your experience and your expertise can be quite valuable for our members, and also to our non-members that are still thinking about it on the fence, and thinking about the situation, or whether or not to work with us and to invest. So thank you for that, guys. Thanks.
Thanks, Danny.
Thank you for that, Tony. Thanks
For
guys.
having me.
All right.